I have cut chickens, I have driven limousines, I have parked cars, I have waited tables, I've been a bartender, draftsman. I've done everything you can think of, and in all of that, the one connective tissue is humans. And if you're going to get into the arts, if you're going to get into medicine, if you're going to get into whatever it is, at the end of it, there is a user, and that person most likely is human. You are designing, you are thinking, you are writing, you are creating for a human being. Therefore, that should be the base of all of that. So don't fear the interaction. In fact, go forth in it. And like, I know that it's harder because we're literally supposed to stay away from people.
All right, hello, welcome back to our Have a Map podcast, where we talk all things career. Today, we're joined with Star and Andenew. Star is a graphic design intern at Dim Events, and I'm Savannah. I'm an intern manager. And then Andenew, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Andenew Ayele. I'm based here in Brooklyn. I am originally from Philadelphia. I am currently Global Senior Art Director for Hinge.
There's so many like different titles and things for all different jobs. So what exactly is it that you do with that title?
With that title, right now I'm in charge of defining Hinge's visual look and feel, which basically means when we're on TV, when we are on your phone, when we are on the billboard outside of the freeway, what does a image from Hinge look like? I'm defining that currently.
And then what does your day-to-day look like post-COVID and then now?
I actually started this job during COVID, but I think we can still speak to just life before and work. I've done similar work in other places. I think it has its benefits. It has its ups and its downs. I think one of the benefits is that you have a lot more time on your hands. I think we all are at home. I'm not wasting 2 hours daily commuting. So there's just a lot of extra time for yourself to prep, for you to take care of yourself, for you to get work going or get yourself going. But I think that there are some negatives. Just when you think about like just working with a team, I feel a little isolated. Working on a global project, somewhat alone, right? And so it's a challenge both ways, but I think that there's ups and downs. Yeah.
Awesome. And then to get a little more specific on some of the work that you're doing, what have been some of your favorite projects that you've worked on, maybe recently?
Yeah, I mean, anything in particular? I've worked across like 40 projects in 2020. So. Okay,
maybe what are you working on currently?
Currently, well, I told you about the Hinge asset library, and I can't really speak much more to that. But I can speak to some personal projects. I'm currently working with a Black woman-owned business here in Bed-Stuy, doing basic identity, web, social sort of work. I'm having a really good time because I just love the clientele. I love her perspective, I love her vision, and I love her hunger for what she wants to put out. And I think it's really cool that I'm able to work with her because one, I feel a little bit more closely to what she's doing. I like the smaller brands. I like people who are sort of like figuring out their dreams and trying to get them out. And I like being a bridge as opposed to like a roadblock, because what I do is kind of like a barrier sometimes. I really look at it, not to be negative, but it does feel like a barrier at times in regards to people's access to it. I come from very sort of meager background, and so there's a lot of points of access and issue. And I think it would be like weird for me to then create the same issue for someone else. So I think that like specifically in these regards, right? Like these are pro bono projects, and I think it's important because like she has a great idea, and what I do is at a premium for her. But once she's able to get her business going, it wouldn't be. So like, what is actually premium? What is actually, like when we talk about like, let's say art, what is fine art? But that's a whole nother conversation. So I'll stop there.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your career change. You said you had changed jobs within COVID. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So I was working in media, actually. I was a design director for a brand that owned 10 other brands. So I was managing 10 brands across a ton of platforms. And there was just such a great disconnect from like the story I just told you about the small business versus like that specific job. In the way that it's like, it's just not close to what I want to do. Media is sort of like turnkey, you know, what whoever is here that needs to be talked about will be talked about, and next week will be the next person up, and next week will be the next person up. There is no like lasting evergreen thing you can take away from it. And I think that, you know, like transitioning in COVID was just as difficult as working in COVID. Now that I have a whole new team that I've never met. We've never actually seen each other in physical life, right? There aren't those moments over the cooler or over coffee or over drinks after work where you go, who is said person I've spent 8 hours with today? So there is a lot of that, just like human interaction that's missing from, you know, transitioning in COVID to another job or position. Just knowing where files are, you know, learning whole new systems. Everything now is on a cloud, right? So like it really makes everything where you would be able to like, hey, where's like asset two? You can't do that anymore. That whoever's sitting next to you is not sitting next to you. They're in their home. So it's been difficult. I will say, not to be negative, but you know, speaking honestly, it's been very difficult.
I would say, isn't it crazy how we are like working with these people that we've never met? Like at dim events, we have people like on the other side of the world that we're working with, where that never would have happened when pre-COVID. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but then obviously then there's those negatives, like getting used to everything.
That definitely there are benefits, I will say. The amount of reach is absolutely one of them. Like I'm working with someone in India currently. I'm working with someone in Ethiopia. I'm working with someone in England. I'm working with someone in Canada. I think that those were all birthed out of COVID because people aren't necessarily looking in New York City for an art director. People can sort of go global. Now that we're realizing that, you know, some of the stuff that we had institutionally doesn't quite make sense. Why do I need to be here 5 days?
I know, like reaching out as COVID now, you're able to reach out to a lot of different people. But I noticed that you've mentioned that it gets kind of lonely and you kind of are isolated. So how do you kind of take care of yourself when you're by yourself all the time?
When you say take care of yourself, do you mean
Like
in
self-care. How do you
regards to?
your self-care?
Oh, I'm like big on self-care. I do like a litany of things, anywhere from like I'm a runner, so like during my day, like I set up times like that I block off for an hour. Like I'll go run during the middle of the day because I don't like running at night. I don't like waking up and then shocking my body for no reason. So like midday is perfect time to run. I don't care if it's during the workday. Like I'm gonna find the time. Like an hour will not kill any of us for me to go and do this. So I think that like a big part of self-care is like just setting boundaries with work, because I think that now that we are home, a lot of what happens is like they know where you are. So they're like, yeah, we know it's 8:30, but no, it's still same thing. My check hasn't changed. And so my self-care routine shouldn't either. And you know, I think self-care in itself is what you want it to be. So for me, I know that when my hamstrings are stretched out, my back isn't hurting, I feel great when I've like had a good meal and I've like slept the right amount of hours, or I've been able to talk to a friend or a family member once or twice that week. Curiosity, I'm a very curious person. I like to like do things that are not just like I had hobbies before COVID. Okay. Like I'm teaching myself how to play the guitar. I'm teaching myself how to use After Effects, something I probably will never use, but I think it's really cool. I think it's just like still being human, like not letting, which is really difficult. Like the first 2-3 months of COVID, I was like everybody else. I was like, how many more runs can I go on? But I think there is a balance.
Yeah. How many banana bread loaves can I make?
I never got to, by the way. My oven broke literally the first week of March.
Of course.
Of course.
Last question I wanted to ask was, if somebody wanted to get started in this industry tomorrow, what kind of advice would you give them?
I staunchly don't believe in advice. Like and I'm not one of those people that like say that and then give you advice. I truly like whatever I went through how could that possibly have any impact on who you are? I don't even know you, right? Like I like, you know what I'm saying? I would hope to, but I think the one thing that rings true with anything I believe is just like do it. Like and as someone who like I didn't go to school for art direction or for design. I went to school for architecture. I practiced for 2 years. I hated it. I quit. I got a job in a restaurant. Then I started watching YouTube videos and I bought textbooks. Then I started then I bought a camera. I started hiring people or getting friends to like who know how to shoot, like come shoot, like I want to direct this thing. And then people wouldn't show up. And then like it's a lot of trial and error, but it's a lot of just like, you know, Nike isn't going to come to you and say, design me a shoe, person who doesn't know how to design shoes. Or the person down the street with a grocery store who needs new branding is not going to say, hey, like, come do my branding, kid who's never done it. And I think that it's unfortunate that that's the construct that we live in, where we have to already have done something in order for us to be engulfed and learn. I think that that's a flaw in the system. But I think the only real fix, like as someone who again who like didn't come from a lot of money, I couldn't just go back to school again. I couldn't just, hey, like go work for my dad's firm that also did this, or my dad knew 3 other people that would get. I didn't have any of those things. The only thing that I could do actually was out of necessity, was like just to go and try to do that thing. So like I got, you know, the 20, 30 different Google emails so that I could have the free trials to Adobe Suite. Like I've done that, you know what I'm saying? Like it's sort of like use case. Like in my, like I didn't have the money to pay the $30 a month or $20 a month for Photoshop. So I made a bunch of emails and I knew that was gonna be my plan until I got that. So I think that like, not to tell you I wasn't gonna give you advice, but it's like, whatever it is that you want to do, like if today they told me I couldn't do this tomorrow, I'm gonna go farm, or I'm gonna do whatever. Like I just don't have this concept of time, of failure, of necessity of others, necessity of construct, necessity of field that already revolves around me. It's like all the stuff in school that we learned that I just never really made sense. Like, why do I need to be around y'all to do this? I don't get it. I would just say go do it, whatever it is. And if you don't know how to do it, go mess it up. Like I've never done a global shoot before. Here we are. This week's gonna be the week, you know?
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, even though you said you're not going to give us advice, but just a good mindset to have. Just go do it. If you want to do something, just go do it. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if it's not, then there's maybe something else better out there for you.
Don't give up. Because like the first 1,000 things I made, nobody cared about.
Yeah.
Like maybe more. Like it's also like when people, well, I did it and it didn't work. I'm like, man, this is my 11th year of doing it and it not working technically. So there is that like also like stick-to-itiveness. It's like if you truly believe it, it doesn't really matter if you're successful at it or if anyone takes it in. Like the crazy person on the street who's writing poems and no one is buying the poems. I have way more respect for that person than like any creative director I've ever worked with. That person has way more courage and empathy and willing to put stuff out. Like the veneer of what is supposed to be success and all of these things, man, if I could have gotten rid of that a long time ago, I would be way more happy, not even successful, happy, and just in a general context, which is not helpful for like people who are trying to get a
career. That's okay. Great to see. I mean, we're just looking for just how everyone got started. It's always like great stories to be told and different ways of looking at things. So our last question that we want to ask to close out is if you could describe your past few days in a song, artist, or album, what would it be? So Star, do you have an answer for this one?
About my my last week or just in general? Oh, okay. My last week. Oh, I wasn't aware I was supposed to answer the question. I'm sorry. Did you want to answer, Samantha?
I feel like I always give the same answer, but I'm a huge Swiftie. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. And I like to just have her on kind of in the background when I'm doing work. It's very calming for me, especially like her recent albums. So I would go with Taylor Swift.
Is it my turn or Stars? Are you going next?
Whoever has an answer can go.
Well, my answer is going to be bad. So I feel like Star's going to probably have like a solid. So I'll go. My week has been hectic, and I'm just dating myself at this point. But I was, when you first said that, the first song that came to my mind was "Annie Up" by M.O.P., which is like the most violent song ever. Not in its lyrics, just like sonically, it's just like horns and shouting and like all ridiculous. And that's what the last like week or so has felt, just like craziness.
Just horns in your ears.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my turn. If I had to, it'd probably be like the last song I've listened to on my playlist, which is like The Siege, Take It. So literally I have to take my time and divide it and kind of divide and conquer everything I have to get done for the week. So that's pretty much where I'm at, like if I had to describe my whole week.
That's see, you had a good answer and you weren't even prepared for it.
Yeah, I knew it. You can always sense when someone's like conjuring that greatness. I felt it.
Well, Andenew, thank you so much for being here and joining us for our podcast. At Dim Events, we like to do a round of applause. So thank you for being here. Give you a little clap on here.
Thank you. And is there anything else? I mean, we do have 12 minutes. I feel like I rushed y'all, and I don't want to.
No, that's okay.
That.
Do you have any like last closing remarks you want to make?
Yes, actually, this is really important. Whoever you come in contact with, or don't come in contact with, in whatever industry, please, no matter how many times you don't get an answer, no matter how many times someone's like, leave me alone, bother people, ask questions. Like, if you see somebody with a nice pair of shoes, if you want those shoes, the easiest way to know what those shoes are and where they are or where you can get them is to ask that person. Same thing with anything else in life. Like, oh, dude is a videographer, and most people love talking about themselves and what they do. So it's not even like a hard like premise to even like get across. So if there is the CEO of whatever, or the mailroom person at this place, but you just want to get your foot into the mail, whatever it is, like stop and engage people. That's one of the better things about COVID. I think that we have had to be really resourceful about interaction, right? Like at the heart of, I've been an architect. I've been a design director. I'm now an art director or a video director. I have cut chickens. I have driven limousines. I have parked cars. I have waited tables. I've been a bartender, draftsman. I've done everything you can think of. And in all of that, the one connective tissue is humans. And if you're going to get into the arts, if you're going to get into medicine, if you're going to get into whatever it is, at the end of it, there is a user, and that person most likely is human. You are designing, you are thinking, you are writing, you are creating for a human being. Therefore, that should be the base of all of that. So don't fear the interaction. In fact, go forth in it. And like, I know that it's harder because we're literally supposed to stay away from people, which as an introvert, I'm like,
yeah.
But yes, we have a mandate. We don't have to.
You don't have to. Yeah.
I will say, man, it's not about what you know, but it's about who you know. Unfortunately, is true. I thought I was going to be the first one to disprove it. It's not. It's very true, and it's actually very fruitful. And when you start thinking about your work, you start thinking about everything that you do in regards to other people or the human being that will eventually be using it or partaking, it makes whatever you're doing a lot easier. It makes selling the idea, meaning getting it across from your mind or your table or your notepad to someone else, a lot easier if you thought of them to start. So remove the ego, bring in other folks.
Perfect. See, we could get more out of you. Well, thank you again for joining us at Have a Map. Mo wanted me to say skirt. Mo wanted me to say skirt.
That's so funny.
They can edit that out.
I'm gonna drop my info. I'm gonna drop my email. If you guys ever have any questions, anything, feel free to reach out. I'm super busy, but I will always respond to an email in due time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.